KAA 21. The importance of ethics in public administration. Public entities have a social responsibility that must be configured according to ethical decisions and actions. Each nation is committed to the values and moral principles that lay the foundations of a democracy, promoting citizen participation in an active way, and carrying out projects that prioritize stable and sustainable development. To achieve all this, it is necessary to be clear about the role of ethics in modernization, and to propose proposals for an adequate reform. Universal ethical principles have a direct relationship with human rights. This means that they are based on the same political, social, economic, cultural, and environmental faculties and freedoms. This also includes the right that each citizen has to develop in a peaceful space. By accepting this, every government is obliged to execute just measures, and none must be carried out to the detriment or denial of the dignity of a group of people. The resolution of conflicts in a controlled manner and without affecting too much public order is also essential. However, assuming and promoting agreements that allow this implies significant changes in the aforementioned entities, something that entails the implementation of responsible leaders who maintain a transparent management based on ethical convictions. For these reasons, it is common for many developing countries to suffer corruption or other injustices, since their leaders are only interested in increasing their power and bank accounts. To prevent this, it is essential to inculcate ethical values at the academic level, both in the personal sphere and in professional associations. This is the only way to access a moral community, and in the case of public administration, they have been established and recognized by several international organizations. In this way, it is necessary to praise disinterestedness, integrity, objectivity, transparency, honesty, and leadership. También cabe mencionar que existen dos tipos de enfoques cuando se habla de ética en el campo de la responsabilidad social. El primero parte de un punto vista utilitario, donde las personas y el entorno son manejado como oportunidades para obtener un beneficio económico. Cuando se considera que esta relación es desfavorable o genera demasiadas complicaciones, termina por ser ignorada en favor de una opción más rentable. El segundo enfoque representa la mejor opción para que las entidades públicas actúen de una forma ética, pues tanto la gente como el mundo natural son vistos de una manera sistemática. De esta forma, existe una latente preocupación por las posibles consecuencias, las cuales son analizadas antes de proceder, permitiendo trabajar por el bienestar común y el desarrollo sostenible de cada clase social. Cat. 22 Ora by Carlos Fuentes. The work of Carlos Fuentes is mostly known for his novels and essays, whose main theme is the history of Mexico and the conflicts in the identity of its people. His works are a deep analysis of the social and moral aspects of his country, criticizing the bourgeoisie and the consequences of the invasion and subsequent Spanish conquest. However, his great talent also allowed him to approach other literary genres. This is the case of Ora, a work that is considered one of the best narrative pieces of the 20th century. Ora is in the thin line that separates the story from the novel, with a relatively short extension but a complex structure and characters built in detail. The first thing that draws attention is that the story is narrated in the second person, allowing the reader to become part of each situation. Both the language and the emotions it seeks to cause flow in an exceptional way, inviting a world where reality exists in parallel with fantasy. The protagonist is a man named Felipe Montero, who works as a teacher and is dissatisfied with his economic situation. His real profession is that of a historian, and he even has knowledge of French. Thanks to these skills, he manages to be hired in an old mansion, where an elderly woman orders him to organize and finish the memories of his late husband. This is how he meets his niece, a beautiful young woman who falls instantly in love. In this way, a series of mysterious and strange events will begin. In Ora, the influence of the Gothic narrative is clearly evident. It is full of dreary environments, which are saturated by a disturbing atmosphere. The shapes and surfaces are consumed by ambiguous shadows, and the silence becomes a choked cry that disturbs and shakes. The relationship between the divine and the diabolic is shown, subtly using supernatural elements laden with symbolism. On the other hand, it is a book that reflects certain traditions that some people still maintain. One of them is the belief in the power of plants, and how their use can have effects that move away from any understanding. Likewise, women are seen in two totally different ways. Sometimes it is a redeeming angel that radiates purity and captivates with the look, while it may also manifest itself as a demon hungry for life force. Finally, it only remains to say that Aura is a novel that stands out for its originality, with a story full of suspense that absorbs the reader and keeps him in expectation from the first moment. It is worth mentioning that its structure and style are uncommon, being recognized as one of the most important works in Mexican and Latin American literature. CCAA 23 Theater and its capacity as an educational resource. From the times of ancient Greece, the theater was used as a didactic resource to transmit versatilely the different customs and traditions that made up the culture of a people. Centuries later its structure became more complex, until nowadays it is capable of having a cathartic effect on the viewer, inducing reflection and introspection. This is possible through the use of aesthetic elements that become mediators for the exaltation of emotions. The aforementioned capacity allows theater to become a very valuable tool for education. In this way, its communicational character transcends the limits of the performing arts, being able to take advantage of its scope in different ways. From a quantitative point of view, it will only depend on the size of the place where the work is presented, and the number of people who come to see it. While at what qualitative level, its effect will be variable in relation to the quality of the script, the acting, and the scenography. On the other hand, it is very important to be clear about some aspects of the theater in order to understand its potential as an educational resource. The stories represented are not only pieces of fiction that serve to entertain, but they are a multidimensional vision of the same human being, which gives us the possibility to examine and analyze ourselves meticulously. The reactions provoked arise from our own conflicts, allowing any individual to deepen their personal convictions. In this way, the theater represents a high-level platform for teachers, who have the option of using it to transmit messages in a more effective manner. Students benefit from the characteristics described above, and their learning process becomes more fluid, resulting in less tedious. Currently there are several organizations and social movements that promote the use of performing arts in education. This is evident with the growing appearance of plays that have historical events as their central theme. In addition, it is worth mentioning that many of them make use of new technologies and fashion elements that are attractive to younger people. En los países más desarrollados es común que se lleven a cabo semanas o temporadas culturales, donde se facilita el acceso al teatro y otros eventos que pueden ser disfrutados por toda la familia. Los gobiernos deben promover este tipo de actividades, mientras que los centros educativos están en la obligación de incorporar mejores métodos para el aprendizaje. No cabe duda que uno de ellos es el teatro, gracias a su capacidad formativa que facilita la adquisición de conocimientos. 24 Critical pedagogy as an alternative in teaching. Education is one of the most important processes in the development of any human being, because only through it can access the essential knowledge for coexistence in harmony. In this way, several social and human sciences have been employed over the years to make it more effective, resulting in the creation of pedagogy. However, the world has changed drastically in recent decades, and the presence of neoliberalism makes it necessary to establish new models of learning in less developed countries. It is in this context that critical pedagogy appears, which is basically a proposal focused on motivating reflection and questioning on the part of students. Among his greatest representatives is Paulo Freire, a renowned Brazilian educator and philosopher, who during the 60s worked as education minister in his country. In this position he proposed that education should be transformed into a political process, where all parties involved are subject to changes in the reality of each nation. The objective of these measures is to face capitalist oppression, something that is achieved through the design of study programs that extol ideals such as equality and democracy. The critical pedagogy also received contributions from Peter McLaren and Henry Giroux, both defenders of minorities who raised the need to confront the ruling classes. Taking all these concepts into consideration, we find that this educational paradigm represents an alternative to minimize the influences of neoliberalism and its economic power in less developed countries. It also contains the possibility of actively fighting for democracy and social inequality, while the new generations regain the confidence necessary to end popular discontent and the exploitation of their peers. On the other hand, critical pedagogy provides the theoretical and methodological tools for the creation of appropriate scenarios. Only in this way can an equitable education be provided that provides the most important knowledge and skills, allowing people to have in the future the opportunity to abandon ignorance and misery. We must not forget that societies that are constituted by conscious and critical people are the most likely to develop ethical values. In order to train students with this profile, a restructuring of the education system must be carried out, where teachers are trained to impart specific knowledge, always with the objective of social and economic progress. This also implies that they can recognize the connections between the students' individual problems and their context. AAAA. 25. The concept of human dignity and its evolution. Dignity is the value that every person possesses, inherently and as a fundamental right within society. It does not depend on any circumstance or conditioning, so it must be respected regardless of ethnic differences, gender, or social class. The concept as such has its origins in ancient Greece, but has left behind its hierarchy to become the most important pillar of human rights. This makes it extremely important to understand how your perception has evolved and how it is integrated in current times. En primer lugar hay que destacar el papel de la filosofía, una disciplina que está encargada de estudiar la existencia y el conocimiento. De este modo, en sus inicios, y gracias a la intervención de varios pensadores griegos, el hombre empezó a reflexionar sobre sí mismo y su relación con el mundo. Al buscar comprender el sentido de la naturaleza humana, y demostrando que su autoconciencia lo posicionaba por encima de los otros seres vivos, es estables que miras recibir un trato especial. No obstante, cabe mencionar que en esta etapa de la historia se trataba de un concepto vinculado a la posición social, e incluso llegaba a excluir a las mujeres. Like many significant social changes, the crisis was necessary for nations to realize the importance of establishing laws and regulations to protect human dignity. The Second World War and its consequences were the trigger for the establishment of liberal ideas, which resulted in political theories that have allowed to establish the democratic system in several countries. Those who did not have these regimes, had no choice but to modify their governmental structure and modify their constitutional frameworks. One of the most relevant impulses in the matter of human dignity was the creation of the United Nations Organization. Likewise, it is worth mentioning the US imperialism and the formation of the European Union, which through their economic and political power have served as a push to maintain healthy relationships around the world. At the end of the last century, one of the most important changes occurred in Latin American countries, which were able to abandon military dictatorships and the totalitarianism of their governments. Again, democracy proves to be fundamental when talking about the rights of the people, helping nations to develop and consolidate in a sustainable way. All people must be clear that human dignity is not a matter of opinion or that it depends on private interests. Each citizen has to be respected equally, receiving fair treatment and being able to access education, professional development, and basic health services. In addition, it is necessary to openly denounce the cases of abuse and corruption that threaten this reality.